Commander Julia Nix paced the cramped command center of Europa Colony, her eyes locked on the holographic display hovering before her. Red warning symbols blinked ominously over the projection of Jupiter's moons, each marking the steady advance of an unknown fleet. Her officers worked furiously at their stations, the room alive with the hum of activity and the occasional sharp exchange of data. "This can't be right," whispered Lieutenant Harris, his face pale as he triple-checked his readings. "They're moving faster than anything we've ever recorded, almost like they're folding space in microbursts." Nix didn't respond immediately. Her mind raced through scenarios, each more grim than the last. This wasn't just a pirate raid or a rogue alien faction testing humanity's borders. The fleet approaching Europa was unlike anything they'd seen in decades of space exploration. "Commander," Harris spoke up again, his voice trembling. "The energy signatures, they're consuming as they go. Asteroids, debris fields, anything in their path. They're converting it into more ships, more weapons." Nix's stomach churned. "Biomechanical evolution in real time," she murmured. "God help us." The room went silent as her words hung in the air. Biomechanical evolution, a concept long theorized but never encountered in practice. A force that didn't just destroy but absorbed, repurposed, and grew stronger with each kill. "Get that message to Earth," Nix barked, snapping back into command mode. "I don't care what it takes, cut through the interference and warn them. We're out of time." The holographic emitter flickered as Nix's face appeared on screens across Earth's major command centers. Her voice was steady, but the urgency was undeniable. "This is Commander Julia Nix of Europa Colony. We have visual confirmation of an alien fleet approaching the outer solar system. They are consuming resources to multiply and evolve. This is not an isolated event. Earth must mobilize all defenses immediately. I repeat, all defenses. If they reach you, they won't just conquer. They'll consume." The transmission cut abruptly, leaving Earth's leaders scrambling to assess the situation. In the United Earth Defense Command in Geneva, General Sophia Kane slammed her fist on the table. "Get me the Europa relay back online," she shouted. "Relay's down, General," her aide responded. "They've lost contact entirely. All signals from Europa have gone dark." The room filled with a chilling silence as the weight of Nix's warning settled over the command staff. Back on Europa, Nix stood on the observation deck, staring out at the distant glimmers of the Zarkish fleet. The planet's thin atmosphere gave the stars a strange, crystalline glow. She'd done all she could. The colony's defenses were a mere speck compared to the fleet barreling toward them. "Commander," Harris called from the doorway, his voice barely above a whisper. "They've entered visual range." Nix turned slowly, her face set in grim determination. "Then let's make them remember us." The screen flashed red as the first Zarkish drones descended. The United Earth Defense Fleet, UEDF, hung in the shadow of Jupiter, its formation spread thin around the gas giant's massive orbit. Thousands of ships, from nimble fighters to towering carriers, waited in tense silence. On the flagship Resolute, Admiral Darian Holt stared at the tactical display, the Zarkish fleet's trajectory marked by a crimson wave sweeping inexorably toward them. "Enemy fleet entering Saturn's gravity well," a sensor officer announced. Holt nodded, his expression unreadable. "Hold formation. We wait until they cross the Titan threshold before engaging. They'll have to commit to an approach vector." The room buzzed with muted activity as officers relayed commands across the fleet. But despite the precision of their preparations, the weight of uncertainty bore down on everyone. "This isn't a battle we can win," muttered Lieutenant Commander Vasquez at Holt's side. "I know," Holt replied quietly, "but we're not here to win. We're here to buy Earth time." The Zarkish emerged from the darkness, their fleet a seething mass of alien shapes. The ships didn't conform to traditional designs. They twisted and shifted like living things, their surfaces shimmering with pulses of eerie light. Some resembled massive organic beetles, while others stretched like tendrils of liquid metal. "They're scanning us," Vasquez noted, her voice tight, "probably cataloging our capabilities." "Then let's show them what we've got." Holt leaned forward. "All units, open fire." The void lit up with the brilliance of human weaponry. Railgun rounds screamed toward the Zarkish fleet, accompanied by waves of guided missiles and experimental plasma lances. The barrage struck true, explosions blossoming across the enemy formation. Cheers erupted on the bridge of the Resolute. But then, something horrifying happened. The damaged Zarkish ships began to knit themselves back together, their surfaces writhing as they absorbed debris from their fallen comrades. Adaptations sprouted in real time: new armor plating, denser shielding, and more advanced weapon ports. "They're learning," Vasquez whispered, her face pale. The Zarkish counterattack was devastating. A wave of biomechanical drones surged toward the UEDF lines, breaking apart into smaller swarms that overwhelmed human fighters. Capital ships turned their adaptive weaponry on the human fleet, slicing through shields with precision strikes. On the bridge of the Resolute, Holt clenched his fists. "Order the second line to fall back toward Mars," he commanded. "We'll hold them here as long as we can." "What about Europa, sir?" Vasquez asked. Holt's jaw tightened. "Europa's gone." The Resolute surged forward, leading a desperate charge into the heart of the Zarkish fleet. For every enemy they destroyed, two more seemed to emerge. One by one, the UEDF ships fell, their bright explosions marking humanity's first major defeat. Hours later, a battered UEDF scout ship limped into Mars orbit, carrying the grim news of the battle's outcome. On Earth, General Kane stood in silence as the report played, her face a mask of resolve. "They're coming," she said, turning to her staff, "and we're not ready." Earth's skies shimmered with the first ripples of Zarkish motherships breaking through the thermosphere. Massive, pulsating structures of biomechanical metal descended slowly, their surfaces alive with writhing tendrils that glowed faintly in the dark. Cities below were plunged into chaos as civilians scrambled to escape, and military forces rushed to prepare defenses. In the United Earth Command bunker beneath Geneva, General Sophia Kane stood before a massive tactical display, watching live feeds of Zarkish drones flooding Earth's atmosphere. "They're deploying terraforming drones," an aide reported, his voice shaky, "converting the environment, seeding the atmosphere with their biotechnical spores." "How long until full conversion?" Kane asked, her tone clipped. 4 days, the aide replied, "maybe less, depending on how quickly they establish hive zones." Kane nodded, her mind already working. "We need to hit those hive zones before they can take root. Dispatch every airborne strike unit we've got. Civilians come second to slowing the spread." A murmur rippled through the room, but no one voiced an objection. Humanity's survival depended on buying time for a countermeasure, if one even existed. On the ground, chaos reigned. Zarkish drones, sleek and insectile, skittered through the ruins of cities, harvesting everything in their path. The drones weren't just killing, they were assimilating, repurposing organic and inorganic materials alike to fuel their evolution. In New York, Captain Daniel Hayes led a ragtag unit of soldiers and volunteers through the shattered streets. The roar of collapsing skyscrapers filled the air as Zarkish spores began to overtake entire neighborhoods, their alien growths spreading like wildfire. "Keep moving," Hayes barked, dragging a young medic to her feet after she stumbled over debris. "Stick to the shadows. They're tracking heat signatures." The group slipped through an abandoned subway tunnel, the air thick with tension. Moments later, a guttural screech echoed behind them, followed by the clatter of Zarkish drones. "They found us," someone shouted. Hayes spun around, raising his rifle. "Cover fire now." The tunnel erupted in gunfire as the group fought off the drones. For every one they destroyed, two more seemed to appear, their movements impossibly fast and unnervingly precise. Meanwhile, on a remote base in Mars's northern hemisphere, Captain Jackson Vale and his elite team prepared for a high-stakes mission. General Kane had sent orders: retrieve the artifact from Mars's research facility and return to Earth at all costs. "We're risking everything on some ancient relic," one soldier muttered as they loaded equipment onto their dropship. "It's not just a relic," Dr. Elias Ward interjected, his voice cold. "It's the only thing that has a chance of disrupting their hive mind. Without it, Earth is done." Vale silenced the murmurs with a sharp glance. "We don't need to believe it'll work. We just need to make sure it gets to Kane. Wheels up in 5. As the dropship roared to life, a burst of static crackled over their comms. "This is Resistance Cell Echo 7 on Earth," a voice pleaded. "Zarkish are everywhere. They're unstoppable. If anyone's out there, help us." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the team in heavy silence. In the Geneva bunker, Kane stared at the tactical screen. Every moment brought worse news. Global casualties climbing, entire regions going dark, and the Zarkish's hive zones growing steadily. Turning to her staff, she said firmly, "We're not fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for time." Above, the largest Zarkish mothership descended toward the heart of Europe, its shadow engulfing the ruins of Paris. Humanity's resistance had begun, but the enemy's advance seemed unstoppable. The Athena, an aging Martian transport ship, streaked across the dusty skies of Mars, its hull vibrating with the strain of atmospheric turbulence. Inside, Captain Jackson Vale and his team prepped for their insertion into the remote research facility buried beneath the Valles Marineris. The Zarkish, relentless in their pursuit of the artifact, had already deployed scouting drones to Mars, and time was running out. "ETA to the facility," Vale asked, securing the strap of his battle rifle. "5 minutes, sir," the pilot replied, her voice steady despite the tension. Vale turned to Dr. Elias Ward, who clutched a tablet displaying schematics of the artifact chamber. "What exactly are we walking into?" Ward hesitated, then spoke, his voice tinged with unease. "The artifact is unlike anything we've ever encountered. It reacts to electromagnetic fields and has shown signs of self-awareness. The Zarkish are here because they fear it. That tells us it has power." "Power we don't understand," Vale said grimly. Before Ward could respond, the ship's proximity alarm blared. "Contact," the pilot yelled. "Zarkish interceptors on approach." The Athena veered hard, dodging streams of bioplasma fired from the Zarkish drones streaking through the thin Martian atmosphere. The transport ship's automated defenses activated, firing railgun rounds that shredded 2 drones, but more were closing in. "Brace for impact," the pilot shouted as the Athena took a glancing hit, sending sparks and debris through the cabin. "Everyone hold on," Vale bellowed as the ship shuddered violently, descending in a controlled crash toward the canyon floor. Minutes later, the team stumbled from the wreckage, coughing in the thin, dust-filled air. The wreck had drawn attention. Zarkish drones were already visible on the horizon, their metallic forms glinting under the pale sun. "Move," Vale commanded, leading his team toward the facility's entrance, a reinforced bunker built into the canyon wall. Ward scrambled alongside them, clutching his equipment. They reached the heavy doors as the first drones opened fire. Sparks erupted around the team as they returned fire, buying time for Ward to override the security protocols. "Hurry up," Doc yelled Vale, his rifle barking in short bursts. "Almost there," Ward shouted back, his fingers flying over the tablet. The door finally groaned open, and the team slipped inside, just as a wave of drones closed in. The doors slammed shut, cutting off the sound of pursuing fire. Deep inside the facility, the artifact sat on a raised platform, its surface shimmering with strange, shifting patterns of light. As Ward approached, the artifact pulsed, filling the room with an eerie hum. "It's reacting," Ward whispered, his face pale. "It knows we're here." Suddenly, a massive surge of energy erupted from the artifact, spreading outward like a shockwave. The lights flickered and the team's comms went haywire. Beyond the facility, Zarkish drones froze mid-motion, their systems disrupted. "What just happened?" one soldier asked, wide-eyed. Ward grinned, a mix of triumph and fear. "It worked, but not for long. We need to move before they adapt." As the team prepared to extract the artifact, the ground trembled. A deafening roar echoed through the facility, and Vale's stomach dropped. "They sent something bigger," he muttered, readying his weapon. The Zarkish weren't just coming, they were furious. The ground quaked violently as Captain Jackson Vale's team scrambled to secure the artifact. Dust fell from the facility's ceiling, and the hum of Zarkish weaponry grew louder. Vale gritted his teeth, barking orders over the crackle of static-ridden comms. "Ward, lock it down. The rest of you, set up a defensive perimeter. Whatever's coming, we'll have to hold it off long enough to extract." Dr. Elias Ward knelt before the artifact, his hands trembling as he attached stabilization clamps to its glowing surface. The object pulsed rhythmically, its light growing more erratic with each passing second. "This thing, it's alive in some way," Ward muttered, his voice filled with awe and fear. "And it's trying to reach out, resonating with something beyond our understanding." "We don't need an existential crisis right now, Doc," Vale snapped, glancing toward the entrance. "Just make it portable." A deafening crash silenced any retort. The bunker doors buckled inward, their reinforced steel groaning under immense pressure. A moment later, they were ripped apart, revealing a hulking Zarkish overseer unit, a biomechanical monstrosity towering over the team. Its multifaceted eyes glowed like molten stars, scanning the room with chilling precision. "Fire!" Vale shouted. The team unleashed everything they had: railgun slugs, plasma bolts, EMP grenades. But the overseer adapted almost instantly. Its shimmering armor shifted to absorb the attacks, and it retaliated with devastating blasts of bioplasma, forcing the team into cover. "This isn't working," a soldier yelled, panic creeping into their voice. "We don't need to win, we just need to survive," Vale barked. As the firefight raged, Ward finished securing the artifact. But as he stood, his face twisted in alarm. "Wait," he said, staring at his tablet. "The artifact isn't just a weapon, it's a key. It can disrupt the Zarkish hive mind because it was designed to interface with it. But there's more, it's not just disabling them, it's broadcast." The dropship roared into Earth's atmosphere, trailing smoke and fire from Zarkish damage sustained during the escape from Mars. Inside, Captain Vale and his team clung to the restraints, the artifact humming ominously in its containment field. Dr. Ward monitored its energy fluctuations, sweat beading on his forehead. "It's destabilizing," Ward warned. "Every moment we keep it active, it's amplifying its broadcast. The Zarkish know exactly where we are." "Good," Vale said, his voice cold. "Let them come. Kane's forces need something to focus their fire on, and if this thing buys us time, it's worth it." The dropship broke through the clouds, revealing a planet engulfed in chaos. Vast Zarkish hive zones spread like cancer across continents, their biomechanical structures towering over once thriving cities. Swarms of drones blanketed the skies, engaging human fighters in brutal dogfights. On the ground, Zarkish war machines decimated resistance strongholds, their adaptive weaponry overpowering Earth's defenses. In the distance, the resolute Admiral Holt's flagship and the last functioning UEDF carrier hovered above the Atlantic, its battered hull a testament to humanity's dwindling strength. "This is Captain Jackson Vale, en route with the artifact," Vale radioed to the carrier. "Prepare to receive us and secure the package." Admiral Holt's voice crackled through the comms. "We've got incoming Zarkish all over the grid. You'll have to fight your way here." "Wouldn't be the first time," Vale muttered, signaling his team. As the dropship approached the Resolute, Zarkish interceptors screamed through the air, their sleek forms releasing streams of bioplasma. The dropship's automated turrets engaged, firing back with precision, but the enemy was relentless. Evasive maneuvers. Vale yelled as the ship shook violently from an impact. Brace for emergency landing, the pilot shouted. The dropship skidded onto the carrier's flight deck, sparks flying as its landing gear collapsed. Vale and his team disembarked immediately, dragging the artifact as alarms blared throughout the carrier. Captain Vale. Holt greeted them on the flight deck, his uniform tattered and blood-stained. Do you have any idea what you've brought us? Humanity's best shot, Vale replied, or its biggest mistake. In the carrier's command center, General Kane appeared on the central holoscreen, her face grim. Vale, we've decrypted some of the artifact's transmissions, she said. It's sending data not just to the Zarkish hive mind, but beyond their network. If we activate it fully, we might shut them down, but there's a risk we're summoning something else. Vale clenched his fists. We don't have a choice, General. The Zarkish are winning. Either we gamble on this, or we lose everything. Kane nodded reluctantly. Then we go all in. The Resolute will lead a final assault on their primary hive zone in Europe. You'll deploy the artifact at its core. If it works, the Zarkish will fall. If it doesn't, we're finished anyway. As the Resolute moved into position, Zarkish forces converged on the carrier. Waves of drones and war machines launched an all-out assault, determined to stop the artifact's deployment. Vale and his team prepared for the mission, each member grimly aware of the odds. This isn't just about surviving, Vale said, gripping his rifle. It's about showing them humanity doesn't break. Not now, not ever. As the carrier's launch doors opened, revealing the hellscape below, the team stepped into their dropship. Above them, the artifact pulsed brighter, its hum now an undeniable call to salvation or to annihilation. The dropship tore through hostile skies over Europe, the heart of the largest Zarkish hive zone. Below, the landscape was unrecognizable, the biomechanical nightmare of shifting towers and writhing tendrils that pulsed with alien energy. The Zarkish hive spanned kilometers, its adaptive structures feeding off Earth's resources to sustain their invasion. Captain Vale's team braced themselves as Zarkish drones swarmed, their screeches cutting through the roar of the dropship's engines. Anti-air turrets fired relentlessly from the hive below, forcing the pilot into violent evasive maneuvers. Hold steady, Vale shouted over the commotion. We need to drop right into the core. The pilot grimaced, weaving through the chaos. I can get you there, but I'm not coming back for you. We didn't plan for a return trip anyway, Vale muttered grimly. The dropship hovered over a gaping chasm at the hive center, its walls lined with Zarkish drones and pulsating structures. Vale signaled his team, and they rappelled down into the pit, the artifact secured on an anti-grav sled. As they descended, the air grew thicker, humming with the hive's psychic energy. Ward's voice crackled over the comms. The artifact is resonating more strongly than ever. It's like it's waking up. Good, Vale replied. Let it scream. The team landed in the hive's core, a cavernous chamber filled with Zarkish machinery that seemed alive, twisting and writhing as if aware of their presence. At the center was a towering, organic spire, its surface covered in glowing nodes pulsing with the rhythm of the hive mind. This is it, Ward said, his voice shaking. This spire is their nexus. If we activate the artifact here, it'll send a disruptive pulse through the entire network. Vale nodded. Set it up. The rest of you, perimeter defense. They'll be on us in seconds. The team fanned out, their weapons trained on the dark tunnels surrounding the chamber. The first wave of Zarkish drones poured in moments later, their metallic forms reflecting the eerie light of the spire. Contact! One soldier shouted, opening fire. The battle was ferocious. Zarkish drones swarmed relentlessly, adapting to the team's weaponry with terrifying speed. The humans fought with desperate efficiency, using explosives and EMPs to hold the line. At the spire, Ward struggled to stabilize the artifact as it pulsed violently. "It's sensing with the hive," he shouted. "But the energy levels are spiking. If it overloads, it'll take us all out. Then keep it from blowing up until we're done." Vale snapped, gunning down a drone that had gotten too close. The Overseer unit from Mars emerged from the darkness, its massive form radiating malice. It moved with terrifying precision, shrugging off gunfire as it advanced toward the spire. "Focus fire," Vale commanded, throwing his last EMP grenade. The Overseer staggered, but kept coming. Suddenly, the artifact emitted a deafening hum, its glow intensifying until it bathed the entire chamber in light. "It's ready," Ward screamed. "Do it," Vale yelled. Ward activated the artifact. A shockwave of blinding energy erupted, tearing through the hive. Zarkish drones froze mid-motion, their forms disintegrating as the energy overwhelmed their systems. The Overseer let out a guttural screech before collapsing, its adaptive armor dissolving. But the spire remained. As the team stared in disbelief, the spire began to shift, its glowing nodes turning red. "Ward," Vale said, his voice low, "what's happening?" Ward's face went pale. "It's responding, but not to us. The signal, it's been intercepted by something else." The ground beneath them shook violently as the spire began to transform, expanding and reshaping into an even more alien structure. Vale clenched his fists. "We've stopped the Zarkish. But what the hell did we just wake up?" The chamber shook violently as the spire erupted in a burst of energy, its form twisting into something unrecognizable. The glowing nodes flickered and expanded, turning into jagged tendrils that reached out like grasping hands. Beneath the surface, the very foundations of the hive trembled, as if the entire structure was waking up from a slumber far older than the Zarkish. Vale and his team stood frozen, weapons raised but unsure of how to fight what they were seeing. Dr. Ward stared at the transforming spire, his eyes wide with a mix of awe and terror. "Ward, what the hell is happening?" Vale demanded. I don't know," Ward shouted, backing away. "It's not just a hive nexus, it's alive. This thing was never meant to be activated." A low, rumbling growl echoed through the chamber, followed by a voice, not one that was spoken, but felt in the mind, deep and alien. "You dare awaken me." The words reverberated in Vale's skull, like an ancient power pressing against his consciousness. His breath caught in his throat as he staggered back, trying to block out the mental intrusion, but it was too strong, too ancient. "What is that?" someone whispered. "It's a mind," Ward gasped. "A superintelligence, older than the Zarkish. It's the true master of this hive." Before Vale could respond, the spire split open in a violent explosion of light, and from within, a creature emerged. Not biological, not mechanical, but something between both. Its form was massive, towering over the team, a mass of shifting tendrils, pulsating energy, and organic armor that seemed to flow and adapt in real time. It wasn't a Zarkish. It was something far worse, something that had controlled the Zarkish for eons. The creature's eyes, if they could even be called eyes, glowed with a cold, merciless intelligence. "You'll regret this," it whispered in their minds, "for I am Cernok, and I have waited millennia to be freed." Vale's pulse quickened as the creature loomed above them, its tendrils reaching down to strike. The artifact, still emitting waves of disruptive energy, pulsed violently, but Cernok's presence seemed to ignore it entirely. "They're not in control anymore," Ward muttered, horror in his voice. "The Zarkish were just pawns. This thing has been manipulating them for centuries." Cernok's tendrils lashed out, and the ground trembled as the team scattered, dodging the destructive force that followed. Vale's mind raced. If Cernok was the true power behind the Zarkish, then their entire strategy had been based on a lie. They weren't fighting an alien species, they were fighting a prisoner's escape from eons of captivity. "Focus fire on the center," Vale shouted. "We need to take down whatever part of it is still vulnerable." The team fired everything they had: EMP rounds, plasma blasts, even the few remaining grenades. The creature recoiled, but the attacks had little effect. Cernok's tendrils snapped back, easily destroying their weapons and sending the soldiers flying. Vale turned to Ward, his voice desperate. "We need something more. If this is the real enemy, we don't stand a chance without backup." Ward's face paled. "There's one chance left, but it's going to overload the artifact completely. If it fails, we're dead. All of us." Vale didn't hesitate. "Do it." Ward rushed to the artifact, activating the last of its hidden functions. There was a blinding flash as the device hummed to life, a massive pulse of energy ripping through the chamber. Cernok shrieked, its form writhing in pain as the artifact's energy surged through the alien intelligence's neural network. But even as it screamed, the creature fought back with terrifying force, adapting to the surge. Vale didn't look back. With a final, desperate leap, he grabbed the last grenade on his belt, pulling the pin and launching it directly at the creature's core. The explosion echoed through the chamber, and for a moment, there was silence. Then, the entire hive began to collapse, in on itself. The last words Vale heard in his mind were those of Cernok's fading voice. "You cannot stop what has been awakened." The team had done the impossible. But whether humanity's victory would last, or whether this was only the beginning of a new terror, neither Vale nor anyone else could yet understand. They had woken something, and in doing so, they had sparked a chain of events that would ripple across the stars, altering the fate of the galaxy forever.